you know. I took my mother to dinner. My mother to dinner, would you believe?
We'll do a bit in the doctors, we'll do a bit in the Boston, we'll do a bit in opting out, we'll do a bit in heroin, and we'll do a bit in the Constitution.
Sure.
Webster is next on BCTV.
Good morning. I'm going to start today with the Social Credit Cabinet Minister who always seems to be in the line of fire. Whether it's about abortions, whether it's about doctors opting out and doctors who want a minimum $100,000 a year, whether it's about the Constitution, or whether it's about the Heroin Treatment Act, on which I gave a modest little opinion yesterday and for which he may have some answers. I think that part of his Alcohol and Drug Commission is a disaster, and that there's a lot of public money being wasted now in a non-proven, quite useless method of operation. But first this morning, in view of the fact that it's snowing and approaching Christmas, I want to show the Minister a problem that one of his broad constituents has. She's a 92-year-old woman. Her name is Freda Smith. She lives in an excellent extended care facility in Vancouver. But she's not too old to fight government regulations which say that if she goes away to her daughters in Seattle for Christmas, she's going to have to pick up the full shot for her accommodation while it's empty. $8.50 a day plus another $16 or $17. And we'll see if we can soften the minister's heart on poor old 92-year-old Freda Smith who can't go home for Christmas without it costing her a bundle. How do you feel about that one, Rafe?
Well,
You haven't seen the facts yet, have you?
No, I haven't, Jack.
We're throwing this in your face, aren't
Yes,
we?
you are. Yes, you are.
Unfairly.
Well, you're always a little bit unfair, Jack. That's what makes you so lovable.
And the dreadful thing is, Rafe, that you're going to have to sit through a 6-minute piece with this little old lady before we get down to the other business of the government.
Fair enough.
Rafe Mair. And with me is one of my favorite women, former politicians. Remarkably bright for a former Tory cabinet minister and big wheel, called Jean Pigott. She's here for the Women's Network. Whatever the hell that is, after the break. Freda is 92. Freda wanted to go away to Seattle with her daughter for Christmas, but she runs into the inflexible regulations of the minister's department, the minister being Rafe Mair. And here is Steve Wyatt, the third, with his report.
Jack, that's the Uville residence here in Vancouver. It's an extended care facility for senior citizens. 5 years ago, Freda Smith moved in. She's 92 years old. Then a couple of years ago, the provincial government took over, and they instituted a new rule. What it means is that residents here can't leave for more than 30 days a year without paying the per diem cost themselves. And what that means for Freda Smith is that she can't go home for Christmas. Freda invited us into her home at Uville so she could tell us her story, but the administrator of the hospital refused to allow that. So with the help of her daughter, Jeanette Murphy, and son-in-law Jim, Freda met us outside. Jim and Jeanette live in Seattle now. and they have been appealing by letter to the provincial government to relax the rules a bit for their 92-year-old mother. The reply from Health Minister Rafe Mair was short and to the point. He pointed out that the long-term care program's temporary absence policy allows an individual up to 30 days vacation during the year, excluding periods under 3 days, for which the program will continue to pay the per diem cost. If your mother wishes to take additional vacation time and still retain her bed, then she must accept responsibility for the total cost during this absence. That kind of inflexibility doesn't sit well with a very independent Freda Smith, nor her children. Jeanette Murphy, your mother's been here in this extended care unit for 5 years now, and you've always spent Christmas together.
All right.
What's happening this year?
She's not able to spend Christmas with her because with us rather, because she's used up her 30 days vacation. From last Christmas, actually, we didn't bring her back until about the middle of January, and then she was down for Mother's Day, her birthday and Mother's Day.
So your mother's used up all her 30 days.
Yeah, she's used up.
From going down to see you, or just...
Yes, from being down, and that's actually, she hasn't been in Seattle since May. She came down in June for overnight. My brother brought her down for our son's graduation, but they had to go right back up because she couldn't spend that time.
So Mrs. Smith could go home for Christmas, but what would happen if she did?
Well, she has to then pay her own regular $8.50, which is what they pay per day, plus the government share, which is, I think, around $16. I'm not real sure on that, but so that it would amount to an extra 16, say for 10 days, it'd be an extra $160. And
so let's get this straight. Your mom pays $8.50 a day herself, and then the government subsidizes the rest of it.
Right.
But if she wanted to go away, she'd have to pay that subsidy herself.
Right, plus the $8.50.
And $160 for a 92-year-old lady is quite a bit of money.
This is true. And most, as I say, my dad worked 40-some years for the CN, and he...
I need shoes right now. Look at the shoes I've got. They're peeled already.
Oh, well, she can always get that. But Dad didn't, he worked hard. He was an engineer, and they didn't pay into a pension fund, so that he doesn't get a lot of money. And this was an ideal thing at the time she came in here.
Now, before the government took over, your mother had a lot of freedom.
Oh, yes. She used to spend, I would say, almost at least 3 or 4 months down, not at one time, but coming and going back and
You're
forth.
a nurse in Seattle, and you work with a lot of people all the time. What do you think about this system?
I don't like this at all. I think anyone that's reached 92 should be able to come and go, have some freedom, and yet retain their independence by having their own place.
Mrs. Smith, what do you think about all of this?
What is it?
What do you think about it?
I didn't hear.
What do you think about this not being able to go? It's not.
I just think it's awful.
You don't think you have enough freedom, do you?
Well, yeah, I think we should be free. We pay. It isn't like if we didn't pay. We pay our way all the way, and you come home, and there you are. And if I think, well, I'd like to go to my daughter like I did this time, I was a long time. I was lonesome. 1 week I was really lonesome. My son, when I was going to pay, they were awful good to me. Well, I thought, well, if he's here, it wouldn't be so bad, But now she's a wonderful, and he's a wonderful man. Now,
A good daughter.
my daughter, yes. And I'm telling you, I think everybody knows her.
No, we're not taking anything away from the
No,
care.
no,
She gets
no.
excellent care here.
You have no complaint about the facility
Nothing.
at all, do
No,
you?
excellent. They get in there well
I
treated.
feel I'm the independent. I just am lucky enough that I have that little pension from, but you see, we get 300, yes, and by the time we pay 265, 67.50,
That doesn't leave you with much,
you
does
wouldn't
it?
have very much left.
Yeah, you pay $267 a month.
Well, per month.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's $8.50 a day,
Yeah,
depending.
if I didn't have this hour, that I've been very lucky about my husband's pension.
Right.
And at that time, he wasn't getting such a big pension either, not years ago,
Well, have you been satisfied with it, what the government is doing to help you out on this? Do you think they're being inflexible, I guess is what you...
I think that being typically government, that they're not, because there's exceptions to every rule, and they do a lot of exceptions for their own use. But I really think, you know, like Mr. Mair said, this is the way it is, and that's it. You can either like it or you pay it. And I don't approve of that. I think that there should be, especially at 92, there's not going to be many more years that she's going to be with us.
Be able to spend time with the family at
That's
Christmas.
right. And there's no way Christmas or anything, you know, like Mother's Day, I think this is a big deal for her to come down to Seattle for Mother's Day because she's with her family. And I have 2 kids, one's 18, the other's 28, and they just are not going to spend Christmas unless Grandma's with them.
I
She's
feel
only
bad
missed-
because this is a nice place, and I get along fine with people anyway. It doesn't matter. I get along, and people get along with me, and people are very good to me. I have good friends, but I feel that if now, like Christmas, New Year's is coming, well, I can sit home if I want to.
But you'd rather not.
Well, no.
Mr. Minister, can she go to Seattle without having to divvy up the $8.50 a day plus the $16 a day to keep a room available till she comes back? Because she has used up her 30 days this year.
Well, Jack, I'll certainly take a look at it, but boy, that's a heavy, you know, a 92-year-old lady, and I've had lots of political problems in my life, but that's a pretty tough one to fight. You know, there's a reason for the rule, of course, and you know, we have a lot of trouble just simply making available long-term care beds. And
You obviously can't have them sitting empty while somebody's away in a 6-month world cruise.
This is a very, very you know, touching type of situation, and all I can say, Jack, is I'll take another look at it.
Perhaps you could make an exemption for all 92-year-old women who this week want to go to Seattle for Christmas, even if they do break the 30-day total vacation.
Well, you know what's going to happen, Jack. You
No.
know, if I make an exception, everybody, 89-year-olds, 88-year-olds, et cetera, are going to be phoning and saying, make an exception for me and make an exception for, or the kids are going to phone, make an exception for my mother. And, you know, it's a very troublesome thing. We have to have some kind of rule. I don't want it to be inflexible, and I'll take another look at this situation.
Well,
It's tough. It really is. You know, you've laid some heavies on me, my friend, for this 92-year-old lady at Christmas time.
Yeah,
you know,
God.
that's got to be the
Rafe,
top of the house.
You've got to let her go home to her daughter.
I'll do what I can, Jack. I really will.
Okay.
You've outdone yourself.
Perhaps we could get the department on the phone while you're still here.
Well, I don't know that they'd be. Oh, yes, I guess they should be at work by now.
They certainly should
They
be.
should be, yeah.
What with their
I'm at work.
What with their index pensions coming up and all?
Oh, God, that's the teachers.
My thanks to Rafe Mair for taking a second look at the 92-year-old woman who wants to go to be with her daughter for Seattle without having to divvy in.
You'll never outdo that one.
We'll get down to business again after the break. You may know, Mr. Mayor, that I was one of the strong backers of the compulsory heroin treatment program, and I realize well that when the courts knocked it out, it destroyed the plan. There was no contingency planning, and you've been limping along with a highly expensive, and I'm being opinionated, highly inefficient heroin treatment and drug treatment program, which has now got to the stage where you got to carry out McClellan's promise and close it down.
Well, Jack, it's not true that we didn't have a contingency plan, you know. We really looked to bring people into the program from 3 different avenues.
Sources.
3 different sources. First of all, voluntarily. Secondly, the court referral system. And thirdly, the heroin treatment program. And I'm quite prepared, with limited enthusiasm, I might say, to defend what we have going now. It's not what we would like. Brannon Lake is not a suitable place. We'd like to find a different place. But you know, we do have somewhere between 40 and 60 people on a regular basis receiving treatment there. And they come in mostly through the court program, but a lot of them through just voluntarily.
Question. The plan was decided to cope with the thousands and thousands of heroin addicts. I can challenge you to say or to deny that at one time you had 17 narcotic addicts in treatment, and that you've had centers throughout this province which haven't even had 1 in treatment.
Oh, that's probably true, Jack, and one of the reasons, of course, is the police have done a damn good job in getting rid of heroin, and we just simply don't have hard heroin addicts in British Columbia like we once did, and we're treating a multi-drug problem.
But Brannon Lake, for instance, has become a holiday camp.
Oh, that's not so.
100-odd people, they can go there.
Would you go there for a holiday?
I'm talking about 100-odd staff, and about 25 to 35 people in for various kind of polydrug treatment, and a highly expensive, wasteful institution which is not achieving the original object.
I don't agree with you, Jack, and you know,
In a little part, you
I
might
watched
agree
your
with me?
program yesterday, and I thought to myself, here's a man who's saying we've got more civil servants than we have patients and that sort of thing.
Right.
Go to Vancouver General Hospital, for example. You've got 3 times as many people working in the hospital as you have patients.
But they have specific functions.
So do we have. So does Brandon Lake have specific functions?
Weight
functions,
watching,
Jack?
EST, transitional analysis, sewing and knitting, centres all over the province. Prince George, Kelowna, Victoria, Nanaimo, Vancouver,
Well-
provincial area coordinating centres, beautiful big offices with computers in them. What the hell do they
One
do?
computer, Jack. Come on now.
A computer.
Yeah, you know,
805 West Broadway, 307
You
West
are
Broadway.
inclined to overstate the case a little bit from time
And the
to
only
time,
thing that's
you
working
know.
is the odd methadone treatment, which is still going on.
Jack, the one thing that Brandon Lake does, I suppose 2 things it does. It does treat people who need and want treatment. Secondly, it operates as a beacon of hope. I hate to use that rather poetic phrase, but it does. It operates as a place where people can look to as hope when they get themselves into drug
How much have you spent up to now? 10, 12 million dollars?
We spend about that per year. That's
Now,
good.
I'm not knocking your alcoholism side of your program, where you've got 60 or 70 clinics, which at least are doing a very good propaganda job throughout the province. Not good enough in some areas, but a good job. So we're not knocking that. But I'm saying that surely a good look at the drug side of that would indicate that you should close down most of the present area coordinating centres and clinics.
Oh, I don't think that's true, Jack. I think that the abuse of drugs, whether it's alcohol, whether it's heroin, whether it's pills, is a very, very serious problem.
How
I
much-
don't think we're doing enough, quite frankly. I take great issue with you.
No, but we started off with behavior modification and magnificent.
You're all hung up on the compulsory heroin.
No, I'm not.
drug.
I was for the compulsory
Well,
treatment.
I know, but that's gone by the boards. We still have a very, very serious drug problem in British Columbia. Jack, you know that.
But do we have any kind of efficient way to run it, or is this merely now a kind of a rest home for highly paid civil servants who have virtually no clients?
Have you been there?
Yes.
When? Come on.
Brian
You and
Lake-
I'll go on. You and I'll go on a tour of it, Jack, and it's no rest home. I'll tell you, it's no place I'd go for a
I'm
rest.
not talking about Brandon. Let's go to your computer and punch up and see how many legitimate addicts are in treatment.
Now, what do you define as an addict? Somebody who shoots heroin in the arm, or somebody who's got a
Yes.
drug problem? We're treating people who have drug problems, Jack. Whether they shoot it in the arm, whether they pop pills, whether they drink too much whiskey, whatever it may be, and it's a big problem.
But you have specific places for polydrug problems now, which is not why the scheme was created.
Oh, I agree that it was not why the scheme was created, quite true. But the fact of the matter is we are treating multi-drug problems in Brandon Lake and elsewhere, and I think that we're doing a reasonably good job. Yes,
Okay.
we could do better.
I'm a housewife in Kelowna, and I have a problem with Librium or Valium or whatever. I can now walk into your place and have a squad of psychological testing which takes 55 hours at vast expense, and I use it as a kind of drop-in clinic. That's not the reason for this whole expensive heroin treatment center operation.
Well, you know, you've got to get rid of the idea of it being a heroin treatment center, Jack. The Brandon Lake is now a poly-drug treatment center, if you will. It's a place that we treat people who have simply problems with drugs, whether it be heroin, whether it be pills, whether it be alcohol, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
And,
but
you know, you're hung up on this heroin
No,
treatment
I'm hung
program,
up with
which is in the courts, and it may or may not.
it's down the tube.
Okay,
Because
fair
you're
enough.
against compulsory treatment anyway.
I spoke in favor of it in the House. I'm now very doubtful about it.
Yeah, the compulsory treatment application is down the tube. Would agree that.
Well, certainly for
Is
the
it
time
not a
being.
fact that you are disturbed by the number of high-paid executives you have and fancy people you brought in, and that you are not delivering the amount of treatment to the number of people for which we are paying?
Jack, we're not doing as good a job as I would like to see done, but we're doing a much better job than you think we are. Yes, we've got too many executives within the system. We're doing something about it.
Oh, you are?
Oh, sure we are.
You've got 3 commissioners and directors of treatments and directors of Brandon Lakes and directors of psychological testing and directors of this and that.
Look around this studio. You've got directors of everything imaginable in here as well. And we are a little top-heavy. We're doing something about it.
Oh, you're
not,
trimming...
not as quickly as you
Are
would
you
like.
trimming the staff of the drug section of the Alcohol and Drug Commission?
Yes, we're doing it by attrition. Now, I know that that's something that you'd prefer that I just fire people.
No,
but,
no,
But
this-
attrition is the only way you can operate in government. You know that.
They're protected civil servants
That's right.
with unions.
We started off with about 383. We're now down to 250.
What are you going down to, 110?
Oh, I don't think we'll go down that low, but we're probably down around a couple hundred.
383 to 200.
Pardon me, 363. We're now 235.
All right, what does your overnight research tell you in the way of narcotics people being treated by the system?
Oh, we've got about 600 or 700 now on a regular basis. We could handle 1,000.
You're talking about the few hundred in methadone?
Oh, they're 125 or something like
You're
that. on
talking
methadone.
about polydrug cases. huh?
Polydrug cases, basically.
In other words, we're agreed that what this fantastically expensive operation we set up is not doing what it was
Oh, of course,
laid out to do.
of course it isn't, and it's going to do a heck of a lot better, Jack. That's my job to see that it does do better.
Why did
But they're
the-
doing a better job than you think they are. I think that's the point I've got to make.
Why did the system of referral from the justice area collapse?
I can't tell you. I think a lot of it is because it hasn't been enthusiastically endorsed by my old bête noire, the federal government. I think that they could do a lot more to support us in that area. But it is working, but it's not working as well as it should.
You know, of course, that you were using totally unskilled people to administer these complex psychological testing, and it got so bad that the BC Psychologists Association wrote to the minister and said, clean up your act or we'll go public. You got that letter,
Yes,
didn't you?
yes, I did.
So that's another defect in the system.
We have defects in the system. It's not run as well as I would like to have it run, Jack, but we're doing something about it. I've got a...
And Brandon Lake is not a holiday resort,
It is not a holiday resort, and if you think it is, I suggest that you take a couple of weeks holiday there.
but it's been ineffective.
No, I think it's been quite effective, Jack. The problem with Brandon Lake is it's not suited to our purposes. It's something we inherited in the ministry. Let me finish. It's something that if I had a standing start, I wouldn't take Brandon Lake. I'd take some other institution, probably build one myself, and it would be in Vancouver, not in Nanaimo. But we've got that, and it is working reasonably well, but it's too much of an institution for what we're trying to do.
Seems to me that for one reason or another, the system grew like Topsy, is now dying like an old rose, and there has been very little accountability.
I think that there has been a lack of accountability. I don't like the way the commission is set up now. I want to change it. I want to make it more accountable to government, and I'm coming under considerable criticism from the opposition for that. They would like to see it floating free in the great beyond.
Oh, they bring back Peter Stein.
I think that the Alcohol and Drug Commission, while it does have to have a good deal of independent, private input, for want of a better word, it must nevertheless be accountable to the Minister of Health and accountable to the government. And that's what I propose to do.
Rafe Mair has just told me that he's going to allow the staff of the drug section of the Alcohol and Drug Commission to drop by attrition. It was at 383. It's down to what now?
235.
235, and you probably settle it around 150.
Yeah, but you said 500 yesterday.
You had authority for 500 at one time.
Well, authority for 500 and numbers of 500 are two different things.
Took you months and months and months to hire this thing, and you brought in some very unusual people from Eastern Canada, I'll tell you too.
Did I?
But I don't want, well, somebody did.
Okay,
See,
fair
McClellan
enough.
told me that if it was a flop, he'd kill it.
Well, the compulsory treatment program is not in effect now, Jack, and it never has been in effect.
And you'll agree with me that there have been occasions in the past when perhaps in some of your area coordination centres, Prince George, for instance, there might not even have been one patient.
Well, I can't answer that, Jack. If you say so, you know, I can't dispute it.
You can't dispute it. No. It certainly has been a riotous success.
We have not done as good a job as we would like to
Oh,
do.
you're going to cut down the commission. What do you need 3 commissioners for?
Well, I think we need a different kind of a setup, Jack, and I'm at a little bit of a disadvantage because I've got a plan, if you will, in with the government right now, and I'm waiting for approval. But I think we've got to change the system.
My thanks to Rafe Mair. We're not finished yet. We've got to deal with abortion, $100,000 doctors, the Constitution. How
How would you like
stand
my
it?
job?
No, thank you. Just don't forget 92-year-old Freda after the break. You asked me if I wanted your job. There's no way I would want your job, you see, because I'm pro-abortion. You're anti-abortion.
Yes,
And yet you're the minister. You have a duty to do.
yes.
Is it your duty to make sure that the criminal code is followed so that women can have abortions in therapeutic cases when they require them? as ruled by a medical committee?
Well, Jack, the Criminal Code of Canada, of course, is delightfully, if that's the right word, vague on what the standards are for abortion. They talk about, for example, the health of the woman, but they don't define health. And Mr. Chrétien, of course, says I'm trying to pass the buck, but the fact of the matter is that the federal government has not defined the key word in Section 252 of the Criminal Code, which is the word health. If you take the World Health Organization definition of health, then almost any possible ailment is sufficient cause for an abortion to be performed. And you're right, I happen to be against abortion. I try very hard to put that behind me in my administration of the Ministry of Health. And I frankly think that I do a fair job of putting that behind me.
Would you like to see the Criminal Code amended to say that where the life of the mother is threatened, abortions are permitted?
Well, I have to answer that two ways, Jack. Personally, I have an answer to that question, but I'll answer it as a minister.
Right.
I would simply like to see, as a minister, a reasonable definition of health so that therapeutic abortion committees, so that doctors, so that all people involved have some guidelines to go on.
Well, agreed. The basic responsibility is that of the federal government to make it crystal clear what an abortion is, when it can be performed, and then you'll carry out your duty.
There's no question about that, Jack. The way it is right now, a doctor simply sends a letter to the Therapeutic Abortion Committee saying that Miss Jones or Mrs. Jones or whatever it may be, her life or health is threatened, and therefore I think an abortion is necessary. The Therapeutic Abortion Committee, of course, are not going to go behind the doctor's decision and say, now, would you mind giving me the details of just how the health of the lady is threatened?
When you faced the crisis at Surrey, where the people who took over the hospital board said no more abortions, didn't they have the power actually to say that?
Yes, they do, Jack, because the only way an abortion can be performed under the Criminal Code of Canada is in a hospital that has a therapeutic abortion committee for the purpose of determining whether or not an abortion is allowed.
The New Blood in Surrey had said, we are wiping out the therapeutic abortion committee.
That is
ipso
correct.
facto, that ended abortions.
Well, the difficulty, of course, is that when you do that, you end all abortions, even ones where a person like myself would agree that an abortion has to be performed. Where a person, for example, like my colleague Bill Vander Zalm would say the same thing. Look, this is clearly a case where the church and everybody else would agree. You wipe them out the same way that you wipe out those abortions that are performed for birth control methods.
What accommodations have you now forced between the doctors in Surrey and the board?
I don't think I forced anything, Jack. I brought the parties together and asked them to reason the thing out, to use Lyndon Johnson's phrase, and I think that they have reasoned it out. I think that they've come to an accommodation where there's going to be a therapeutic abortion committee at Surrey Hospital, and I think the doctors recognize that the board is going to watch the operation of that committee very carefully.
Oh, the doctors have agreed not to do certain kinds of abortion.
Oh, I don't think they've agreed at all to do that. I think that they recognize, however, that this is not going to be a rubber stamp type of therapeutic abortion committee.
In other words,
I'm just guessing, Jack. I don't know. I brought the parties together and said, look, for goodness sake, you've got to work this thing out. You can't deprive people who, by any standard, require an abortion. You can't deprive them of an abortion by simply not having the committee. And I think that they saw that that made some sense.
So it really will be, if the doctors don't want to be wiped out, go slow on abortions in 1981 at Surrey Memorial.
Well, I think you should ask the committee that, Jack. All I did is I brought the people together and I said, for goodness sake, let's have some common sense in this situation.
Next thing, you have another beautiful one on your doorstep with the doctors. Alec Mandeville, head of the BCMA, is running around shouting, hey, you should all opt out, you should all opt out. Medicare is communism, kind of thing. And I see where they're hammering you for a $100,000 basic, and some of them...
37.5-hour week.
5 days, 37.5-hour week, $100,000. Perhaps you're thinking of charging them for the use of our public hospital facilities to make their money.
Well, Jack, Alec Mandeville and I get along very, very well privately, but we have different rules publicly. Alec feels that he is able to say whatever he wishes publicly in the interest of getting some sort of a settlement for the doctors. I've made it clear that I'm not going to negotiate publicly. I've used the analogy, and I think it's a fair one, that Macmillan Bloedel does not negotiate with the IWA from president to president. We have people to do that job for us, and that's precisely what I'm going to do.
Yeah, well-
Alec can say what he wishes. He's got his own constituency. He's a politician,
Sure,
like I am.
And we know the game, so I'll say to you, would you like to see doctors making, can we afford to have doctors making $100,000 a year on their basic fees?
Well, it depends, I suppose, on the doctor, you know, how hard he wants to work and how long he wants to work. But I don't think there's any way in the world that we can have $100,000 a year doctors and a 37.5-hour a week.
On a minimum.
On a minimum, no, of course not.
I happen to agree with you entirely, but then again, I believe the teachers are stupid when they're going to be striking all year now in the political protest because they're not getting fully indexed pensions.
Well, I think that the tragedy there, Jack, is that the teachers seem to think it's okay to use the kids as a bargaining tool, and I think that's clearly wrong. They've got, I think, 27,000 teachers. That's a very, very large political lobby. They've got enough strength in their own numbers without using the kids.
I'll say right now, let them suffer.
Well,
They
Jack,
strike
that's
for
for
pen-
others in my... I get enough trouble, you know, getting sideways with my colleagues without doing
Oh,
doing it on public television.
As a matter of fact, Jimmy Hewitt took your nose right off.
Did he?
Yeah, the ICBC man.
Well,
he said Mr. Mair was not present at the cabinet meeting where we decided to adjust, whatever it was, the 25% discount for seniors. He took rather a cheap shot at you, I thought.
well, that's, you know, your opinion, Jack. The fact of the matter was I wasn't at the cabinet meeting, but another fact, which is, I think, an important one, I made no statements that would compromise either Mr. Hewitt or the cabinet. But,
You were the guy who signed the order in council.
Yes,
Oh,
I
the
signed the order in
ICBC
council.
rate.
Sure, all it was microfiche. You know, I don't think even IBM could understand what the actual figures were, but that's beside the point. You know, I think there's a great misunderstanding abroad, Jack, that cabinet ministers should all get along like little peas in a pod. We have differences of opinion, and we state them, and I think it's healthy. I think it's right.
Do you ever have differences of opinion?
Why
in
not?
your cabinet?
Why not?
Anyway, opting out is no great issue, is it? Not in BC.
Well, you know, I'm very nervous
My
about
doctors.
saying anything, Jack, because we're in the middle of
Oh, you're
negotiations. I
negotiating.
don't want to compromise, but compromise our
Anyway,
position.
you support Emmett Hall on no extra billing.
Yes, I do.
Enough. Constitution and then calls. Because I want you to brief me as to what I should ask Davis from Ontario, who'll be here Friday morning.
All right. Okay.
Is he a tiny perfect premier, or am I thinking of somebody else? Well, I'm thinking
Well,
of Crombie.
Crombie, yeah.
Tiny perfect mayor.
Yeah, that's right.
But all people from Ontario.
Crombie doesn't smoke a pipe, though. That's the distinction.
I see. After the break. You've been deeply involved in the constitutional capers. I think that's what we should call them, Mr. Mayor. And quite seriously, I've got Davis here on Friday morning, and I don't know what the devil I'm going to do with him. Because I'm a reasonable person who, unlike some of people on the extreme right, I am really a federalist. There's no point in kidding myself. And I'm alienated. But I'm not in any way, shape, or form a separatist or even considerate. Are you?
No, of course not, Jack. Of course not.
Well, what is the trouble? Because we're fighting over money and an energy policy, and because Trudeau chooses to send the cold-eyed Lalonde out here, and because Trudeau says indelicate things, are we going to smash up the country politically?
Jack, I think one of the very tragic things is that we're looking at the symptoms and not at the real disease here. If you examine what Mr. Trudeau is trying to do, and he's trying to do it all on his own, he is going to change the entire structure of our country. He's going to throw out all of the traditions, and I mean this seriously. I've given a lot of thought to what I'm saying now. He's going to throw out all of the traditions for which we have, frankly, fought many years. He is, in essence, going to change our form of government from a constitutional monarchy into a Republican type of government. And if you want any proof of that, simply examine what an entrenched Bill of Rights will do. That is the first step at the erosion of the supremacy of Parliament. Now, you can say, well, we should have rights entrenched and all the rest of it, but the fact of the matter is, if you remove from Parliament any essential power, you have eroded the supremacy of Parliament. Now, we've heard a lot of rubbish from Mr. Trudeau as to what an entrenched Bill of Rights will do, and I'll just give you one example. An entrenched Bill of Rights, according to Mr. Trudeau, would have helped the Japanese in 1941 in British Columbia. And I can tell you, an entrenched Bill of Rights in the United States didn't help the Japanese in California. Probably the best Bill of Rights in terms of actual written words is in the Soviet Union, and they have no rights at all. And what essentially is happening is Mr. Trudeau has his own idea of how this country ought to be run, and it's not the idea that I grew up with, or I suspect the idea that you grew up with.
All right, forget the Bill of Rights to moment. It is a fact, and Trudeau must be supported on this, that over 53 or 100 odd years, it has been impossible to get agreement,
Jack,
on an amending formula for the Constitution.
that is technically true. If you go back to 1927, which incidentally was 4 years before we became a nation in 1931, yes, we have tried to get the Constitution back, but not very hard. We didn't really start until 1967.
You know,
and that's, it's sort of, it's a typical thing that frankly, that Mr. Trudeau does. He just glibly says that for 53 years we've been trying, and that's just nonsense.
if he dropped the Bill of Rights, would not the package then be quite acceptable?
If you have an amending formula. We are a federal state, Jack.
He's got the Victoria amending formula in it right now, which ain't all that bad, except for the permanent veto of Ontario and Quebec.
Well, that may not be all that bad to you, but it's all that bad to me. That makes, senior provinces and junior provinces. Makes first-class provinces and second-class provinces. I didn't agree with the Victoria Charter in 1967 or 71, although I wasn't part of government then. I don't agree with it now. I think that's wrong.
Well, what's going to happen?
Oh, I think that probably he's going to bring the Constitution home. I think the British Parliament is going to have to do what he asks. And he probably, Jack, just hear me out,
Go on.
for one moment in time, Mr. Trudeau is going to be able to stand up to the Canadian public and say, I did it, I've got a Constitution home, you are now, for this instant, a unified nation. But I'm going to tell you, in the years to come, we will pay very, very dearly for this unilateral act. Very dearly.
And then will he say goodbye and God bless you?
I think that's precisely what he'll do.
Any phones to the minister? Can I go to phones to the minister now? Because I've got Jean Pigott here and I'm running late. Where can I go? I don't know if this is about 92-year-old Freda, the heroin
We'll take our
blind.
chances.
We'll take our chances.
When
Go
I come
ahead.
on your show, we always take our chances.
Go ahead, please.
Hello.
Yes.
I'd like to ask Mr. Mair about, he's talking about cutting maybe 50 or 85 or I don't know how many people out of that heroin program. But,
No, we're talking about the Alcohol and Drug Commission in total, not just the heroin program.
oh, as the whole thing.
Yes.
But there's, in some places, I understand there's waiting lists to get in for alcohol counseling.
Well, I think that that's probably true. I don't think that we're overstaffed in total in the Alcohol and Drug Commission by very much. Mr. Webster thinks we are, but I don't think so.
only in the drug section of it.
Okay, fair
Only
enough.
in the drug section.
Well, then couldn't these people be moved over?
I think that's
If they're competent.
yes, that's right, and that's precisely what we're trying to do.
And you, of course, you're stuck in government. That once they're on the list, whether or not they're qualified or competent, you got to give them another job in the system.
It's very, very difficult to move people in the government system.
Infuriates me.
Impossible.
Thank you very much, sir. Go ahead, please.
Hello, Jack.
Yeah.
Hi. I just wanted to ask Rafe Mair a question about abortion. I understand he's against abortion, and I have, well, I won't call them friends. They're acquaintances in Port Moody, and they're on welfare, and for the longest time, for about 2 years, all they did was sat at home in bed all day long. And they happened to make a little bit of a mistake in the process of doing this, and went to the government and said, well, we're on welfare, we need to have an abortion. And there was no questions asked.
Well, welfare doesn't make any difference to your qualification for medical care.
I think, life is life, and if you destroy life, that's wrong. It's a very simple creed, but I believe it.
Go ahead, please.
Yes, Jack.
Yes.
I want to ask Rafe Mair 2 questions. I'll ask the first, get an answer, and then I'll ask the second. Is that okay?
Briefly, quickly.
Precise. Why, when you open a neighborhood pub, do you have to show parking spaces for vehicles?
Well, first of all, I don't have control of neighborhood pubs anymore, but I quite agree with your point. When I was minister, and I think Nielsen is trying to follow the same type of program, I think the less parking spaces, the better. The problem you come into is with the civic people, the municipalities. They want to have all kinds of parking. I think parking, what it does is it takes away from the walk-in nature of the pub.
Personally, I think we should make the drunks walk, whether or not they're public officials.
Well, what
or
happens is,
ordinary people.
you have your own friendly little neighborhood pub, and everybody's driving to it from other neighborhoods, and that, it destroys the whole essence of it. I quite agree with you.
Second question.
Second question. Why have you given the neighborhood pubs in Squamish the rights to open on a Sunday when you haven't given the other neighborhood pubs in the Lower Mainland?
Well, I
the
haven't done
option
anything.
of
I haven't done anything of the sort,
opening?
sir. You'd have to ask Mr.
That
Nielsen.
Squamish Highway is the most dangerous
Agreed.
highway on the
Yeah.
face of the earth.
But that's Nielsen's bailiwick, and I raised that with him at the time and didn't get a very satisfactory answer. Go
Sorry, I
ahead,
can't help.
please.
Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question for Mr. Mayor. I have a 4-month-old baby, and I cannot register my child because I am married but separated, and the father of the child is not my husband. It is my boyfriend.
Well, you must register the child.
I have to register the child, or I can be fined $2,000.
We've got some changes coming up in the Vital Statistics Act, ma'am, to take care of that sort of situation. I quite agree that it's wrong, and we're going to do something about it.
Just a minute. You mean to say only the father can register the child?
No.
Well, why can't you register the child?
Because I want to register the child in my maiden name. I can register it in my married name or my boyfriend's name, but I have not the right to register it in my maiden name.
And I think that's wrong in this day and age, Jack, and we're going to do something about
So
it.
she just hangs back, does she?
Well, you know, I have to say to her, you're just going to have to hang back, and it's too bad that you do have to, and I feel, very sad about that, but we are going to do something about it.
Thank you, ma'am.
When? Because I would like to have my child registered.
I don't blame you.
And I've also been told I cannot collect the child bonus at $20 a month or whatever because I have not registered my child.
Well, you'll have to take that up with our federal friends.
With the federal friends?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, please. No, I'm not breaking that.
Mr. Webster?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm a nurse in private practice, and I'm trying to support myself and my family.
Oh, just a minute. I've got to take a break and do one more short segment with Rafe because I've got to get to Jeannie Pigott. Hold on.
Okay.
I'll come back to you after all the break. Do come to the point, says Gladys. You tend to waffle. Go on, that's you, caller.
Oh, hi. As I said, I'm a nurse in private practice. I'm trying to support myself and my family by working directly for the public and with the doctors. I'd like to present an argument on behalf of nurses having coverage under the insurance plan and use my own practice as an example of how it can help. Okay?
No.
You want them under a medical services plan, do you?
Yeah,
And you're a nurse.
that's right.
Well, why don't you join a hospital or an agency or something?
I was doing that, sir. That's part of the problem.
No,
Nurses
too
are
complicated.
trapped into working for institutions whose priority is to get money out of the government, operating money out of the government, and to do as little as possible for the most numbers of people.
Just a minute. You're a private care nurse who wants paid directly by the government for your clients. Is that right?
Yeah.
Now, can you handle that, or is that too complex?
Well, I think that what the lady ought to do is to present her case to me. Send me a letter, and I'll respond to it.
Thank you.
It's
Too
as you say, it's a little complicated to do in a short shot.
It's not of general interest. It's, go ahead, please.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Webster and Mr. Mayor. I've got 3 comments about the Drug and Alcohol Commission, if I may. The first one is concerning the comments on attrition. Through personal knowledge of friends that are working in the commission as counselors, it's been my experience that long after the Supreme Court decision was made invalidating the legislation, that there were people who were put on permanent status and therefore were immovable from their positions, whereas they could have been let go, prior to or after the decision was made because they were on temporary
Good point,
status.
ma'am. Good point. I think it's correct, too.
Yes.
Next point.
Okay, the second comment is concerning programs such as the Alternatives program, which is the one that I have personal experience with. Is it not true that one of the ways that you've managed to gain a large part of your clientele is through taking fairly successful, independent polydrug treatment programs such as Alternatives under the umbrella so that you could beef up your clientele under the Drug and Alcohol Commission?
Well, first, I don't think we're trying to beef up our clientele. We certainly support a lot of private agencies, and, if we're to be criticized for that, fair enough, but we'll continue to do so.
No, I just remembered every phone call, just a minute, love, every phone call in was treated as a client under treatment in some of your plans.
Well, Jack, I can't answer those individual
I can
problems,
tell you that.
but I can tell you this, that the basic problem with the Alcohol and Drug Commission is something we talked about a while ago, in my view, is that it is too divorced from any direct control from government. Now, you've got to find a nice, happy balance so that you do have independent, I hate the word, but input from the people, the general public. At the same time, you have to have some kind of control from the Ministry of Health. That's the fine balance that we're trying to accomplish.
Next point, ma'am.
Can I just make one more comment on the Alternatives program? One of the things that I thought was highly advantageous of a program like Alternatives was that it was working very well independently. And they have, I understand recently, have had their funding cut off so that they would be...
Okay, enough of alternatives. I think they were right to cut off the funding. What's the next one?
Okay, I just wanted to make a few personal comments on what I know the working conditions are like, talking about overpopulation of staff. I know that there are things going on, like a friend of mine who is a counselor getting paid a total of, including benefits, of around $1,700 a month, doing things like going over to Brandon Lake when Brandon Lake was still essentially functioning to some extent, on a plane, spending a day doing that, and essentially acting as a babysitter. She also, I'm a lawyer, and I have done some divorces for people under the program, and this individual came in one day with had brought her client to her appointment because she wasn't sure whether she could make it. She also has spent days doing exercise classes, not for clients, but for other staff, because it was felt that the other staff should be getting in shape. So I've seen what I consider it to be quite an...
Telling you, it's been a rest home.
Jack, you can always make out a case by taking these isolated incidents, which I don't deny. I'm sure that they happen. But
people taking courses and degrees while they're working on the staff.
But to paint the whole project at Brandon Lake with that kind of a brush, I think is totally unfair. I invite you and that lady to drop in and take a look.
No, I'm talking about the staff control and the Alcohol and Drug Commission. People taking degrees, university degrees while they're working on the staff.
Well, I'm not going to confess the sins that you and that lady want me to confess, but I am going to tell you that we're in the middle of a mass reorganization of the Alcohol and Drug Commission.
Thank you, lawyer woman.
Sorry?
Thank you, lawyer woman.
Thank you.
Much obliged. Go ahead, please.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Good morning.
How are you?
Oh, I'm just fine. How are you?
Good.
Listen, I have a solution for your abortion and health problem.
What's that?
Right across the Canada, I'd like federal government to understand the provincial governments in health. Health is life and environment, and the life and environment of fellow beings, that we must understand natural resources.
Here, ma'am. Thank you very much for your great contribution. Go ahead, please.
Hi, yes, I just want to ask Mr. Mayor, seems to me that I remember a time when people could come into the clinics and leave a dirty urine and get 6 weeks of free methadone. Is that practice still in effect?
Oh, I don't think that that practice ever was in effect, frankly. At least if it was, I don't know of it.
Oh, well, I know it was.
Was it? Well, I don't think it's still in effect. Does that answer your question?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
But you will ask when you're around these people.
Oh, sure, Jack. I'd be the last one to say that I know everything that goes on in a ministry of 5,000 or 6,000 people with $1.5 billion.
How much do you spend of our money?
$1.5 billion every year.
What's the total budget?
What was it last year? 5 point something? Yeah, we spent about 30% of it.
You spend $1.5 billion? $1.5 billion. Jeez, oh.
Yeah, that's even more than you make.
Rafe, thank you very much.
Oh, come on, Jack.
Don't forget 92-year-old Freda.
I won't, Jack.
Don't forget a good hard look at what's left of the drug section of the Alcohol and Drug Commission. Don't forget Alex Mandeville, and tell him from me if he wants to opt out, he can opt out.
Okay, Jack.
And collect his own bills, right?
Merry Christmas to you and Ellen.
Next, the Women's Network, of which I am a principal and founding member of RIC.
He's good. He's cool.
Yeah. Jean Pigott was a power in the Conservative government in Ottawa, and she was the one who allocated people to jobs. What was the description of your job, Jean?
Well, I was senior advisor on human resources, and I kept the cookie jar. How was that?
You handed out the jobs to the party faithful?
No, really what I created the National Talent Bank for people, for the Order and Council, and then I helped prepare the short lists for the Prime Minister and for the ministers, who could then choose who should be it.
While we're not going to talk politics this morning, I want to compliment you, because one of the things you did was that you did your business in public.
Exactly.
And you gave out the amounts of monies and the terms and contracts of the people from the National Talent Bank, some of whom would be Conservatives, of course, who got these jobs.
Exactly.
What did Mr. Trudeau do when he got back in power?
But they have discontinued the use of my famous yellow books. They are no longer available.
They now do everything in the back room.
I'm afraid so.
And they do not give out the amounts of money being paid to people who
Or
have...
the percentage of jobs for areas. For example, British Columbia. How many people from British Columbia have been appointed? How many women? This type of thing that we were doing. Because every quarter, Mr. Clark had given me instructions to be certain that the public at large and the media knew how we're trying to balance regionalism, some of the interest groups, that type of thing.
Yeah, we've done stories on the fact of the various national boards, and very seldom can you find anyone from British Columbia on the boards now.
Jack, I have to tell you that I was very shocked when I finally got all the facts together, looked at the spreadsheets of the appointments, senior appointments, to find out how few people from the West, and in particular British Columbia.
They all came from Ontario and Quebec, didn't they? Many of them did.
I'm afraid that I have to say that was the truth. And we were about to rectify it.
You have a present for me?
Yes, I certainly do. I thought that, you're, I think, one of the nicest curmudgeons I've ever known. And you know what a curmudgeon is, you know?
No, what's a curmudgeon?
Oh, a curmudgeon is somebody who's very tough and crusty on the outside and soft as putty on the inside.
That's me.
That's you. There you are. You know, I'm a baker. I also, do you know what I call you behind my back, behind your back? I call you the nicest crusty loaf of bread I've ever met. You know, crusty and nice on the outside, but beautiful on the inside. There you are. They're Merry Christmas, Jack.
Thank you very much. And I look like an old French loaf.
Dear old crusty.
You've put me off the...
Now you want to know why I'm out here?
No. I was going to ask you something else. What is this Women's Network?
Oh, it's the most exciting concept. Your university out here, University of British Columbia, has developed a concept to help working women in their career orientation. And it's doing the old thing that you men have done for years. It's creating the buddy system. Where one another...
Is this for university women?
Oh, no, it's for working women.
Because I think they are pampered darlings, male and females, out at that place on UBC.
Well, I don't know anything about UBC. All I know is that you've got a department out there that has understood a very big market.
Okay, I'm a woman. I'm sitting at home. I've never heard of the Women's Network. I'm a housewife, so therefore I don't care about it.
Oh, no, you do care about it. You do care about it very much. Because let's face, inflation is hitting the housewife very hard today. She's having to say with her husband, will I have to get a part-time job or a job to help me during these very tough days of inflation? Many women at home are saying, how do I touch in? How do I link into the working world again? How do I upgrade my education? How do I plug in again?
But it's all got to be done through woman contact, has it?
Well, I think that's one program. You know, one of the things that men have done so successfully over the years, through their men's clubs, through their service clubs, is that they've helped each other. It's what I call business intelligence. You hear of a job opening. You support, if a man's going through a bit of a rough time, he'll often go out to lunch with a few of his buddies and say, hey, you know, I don't know what to do with this son of a gun of a boss I've got.
Right.
And you talk it out.
Well, look, what do I do? I talk with lawyers, sometimes even with judges.
Yes. Well, oh, really out here?
Not too keen on talking to judges.
No. But you talk.
I belong to a golf club.
That's right.
I belong to a racquetball club.
Exactly.
And it's a matter of natural course for me to say, hey, I got a problem.
That's right.
Or, hey, I'm looking for somebody.
Or else, gee, I heard of a good tip on something. I heard of something happening.
But
That's called networking.
Is that not, said he, putting his foot in his mouth, a genetic difference between men who are more generous with each other than women who tend to be snippy?
Do you really believe that myth? Now look, women for years have been in the home atmosphere where you didn't need that kind of thing. But now, for example, 52% of the population are women, right? Now, you've got three incredible groups of women moving through the marketplace at the moment. You've got these young, well-educated women who are now traditionally studying in fields that were accounting, medicine, and so they say to themselves, I'm going out there and I need help. Secondly, you've got the woman at home who's recognizing she's going to have to plug in. Third, you've got the crest of the wartime baby boom moving through. You've got a lot of 35 to 45-year-old women who have been at home raising children and now recognize that they've got another 25 years of life. and they're not going to just sit around playing bridge. They're going to
Yeah,
plug
but
in.
why have women not developed this sociable contact that men have developed as a matter of...
Till 20 years ago, we were at home having babies and putting out the laundry. See, two things have happened to us in the last 20 years.
More's a pity.
Aye, come on now. Listen, do you want to know something? If for one decade the men had the babies and stayed at home, boy, would some of the laws change. We'd have pensions
I got news for you, Jean. That can't happen.
I know, but just think if it did happen. You'd have pensions for
If
housewives.
my auntie at wheels should be a streetcar.
Oh, now never mind your auntie at the moment. All I'm saying is that what we have to do is to change an awful lot of things in regard to women. We're half the population, and it's time to
It's up
change
to the
it.
women to do it, though.
That's
Don't
what we're up to.
expect too much help.
Oh, well, that's what we're
Well,
doing.
you've done a lot in the past 10 years, haven't you? I
Yes, tremendous
and
change.
there are outstanding women such as yourself who have made their own mark all the way through. In newspapers, not so much in the law, a little bit in medicine. In fact, newspapers and universities were the only place where women came to the top, weren't they?
Okay, that's right.
So now you're setting up networks. Are you
That's
just
right.
telling
Well,
them
like
how
you
to
take,
do it?
no, last night there was a dinner party. There were 300-400 women in this hotel room, or hotel, a lovely dinner. What I did, I got up and told my story of what I have been doing. I was a role model last night.
A role model. That's another new one for me. Role model. Role model. Am I a role model for talk show reporters?
Yes, you are, except I think they'd come and look at you and look at all the mistakes you've made and then decide not to do them again. How's that? Now, that's just throwing it back at you, Jack.
Fair enough.
All right.
Jean Pigott, Women's Network, a role model for women's network activities after the commercial break. You, Jean Pigott, are a role model for the Women's Network. You, Jean Pigott, are the chairman of the board of a family company
That's right.
called
Morrison Lamott Incorporated.
Bakers.
Well, we're bakers and frozen food manufacturers. We sell a fair bit of product out in your area out here.
In a big way. Quite a
Well,
big way.
we're in it for a small family independent company. I think we've done very well.
But I mean, okay, is it easy for you to be a role model because you are already, apart from your political life, you were already a business success?
Oh, yes. I think one thing is I did inherit a family business, but I inherited it at a time when there were a lot of troubles. I increased the business. I've done quite a few things in the business area that have been first. First on, for example, a woman on the Ontario Hydro Board, that type of thing, so that I have moved into the corporate world. Now, last night I told
Did you meet discrimination?
I met, and I say discrimination, I think it was mainly people who were not used to women in the boardroom. They don't know what to do with you, especially older males are really quite funny about it all. But let me tell you one thing, like what I tried to say last night to those women, that they must look at taking on management roles. If you want to succeed in business, you usually have to go the management route. There is a very few single professions like yourself. So I talked about the three-legged stool of management.
What's the three-legged stool?
Technical skills, human skills, and conceptual skills. Now you need those three to become a good manager. And I told them stories about my mistakes, the same kinds of things that I had found that worked to help me in my career. And of course I ended up with trying very hard to get more of them to be involved in the political process.
Okay, if I'm a woman, and I've got, say, a reasonably minor functionary job in a big corporation like Macmillan Bloedel, just at random, or one of the big BC Tel or something, how do I use the network to move myself upward?
Well, I think, for example, afterwards, people came and spoke with me. There's a young woman who was just recently appointed a supervisor. And she said some of the things that I had talked about last night in the human skill area, of how you deal with people, how you deal with building teams, how you're always looking to strengthen the strong parts of your team, this type of thing. She said she found very helpful because she
you
and
get
I...
to that stage, though, you might find that you've got a number of men who resent it still, even in this liberated age, that they're being bossed by a woman. Is that so old-fashioned that I don't know what I'm talking about?
I think that is old-fashioned. I think there is some of that, Jack, especially with the older. But I find with the younger men that the point is, if somebody's good at something, boy, thank God for it.
Well, even very grudgingly on occasion around here, I have to admit that there are women who can do things that I couldn't necessarily do.
And do them very well, I would think.
Yeah, well enough. See, my generation doesn't want to give way. Not really.
Well, no one. You know, change. You see, one of the things that's happening out in society is that we're changing so quickly.
I'll tell you, I don't know more than a handful of women who could tackle this kind of particular stressful, tense job and get away with it. Partly because the popular appeal of women to other women is highly doubtful and a little shrill.
Jack, you have just said a very provocative thing that I don't believe. I'm not saying that you haven't been a superb
No, I'm saying men. I'm saying men.
Oh, now, Jack, you really do belong in the dinosaur age.
Look, let's do this. Okay. Well, now we've got time to have a telephone segment. And do you want to join the Women's Network? What do you lack to get ahead in your
career? That's right.
Uh-huh.
Is it wrong for women?
No, please, for goodness sake.
All right.
After the break. Where do I go, Gladys? From Kelowna to Jean Pigott.
Yeah.
Oh, you want to join the Women's Network?
No, I was just going to say, I think it's got a lot to do with morale, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. It is the business of really helping women in their career advancement. It's, you know, it's the buddy system.
Good, thank you. Go ahead, please. Where are you?
Hello.
That's you, ma'am.
Good morning.
That's you, ma'am.
Good morning. Yes, I was just phoning to say that I'm a registered nurse, and I was very interested in your program this morning, that I'm very interested in taking part in this program for women.
Okay, just to answer that question, if you wouldn't mind, Jane, how do they actually, is there a thing called the capital W, capital N Women's Network?
Yes, you see at the very end, very at the back there's an application that you can join the Women's Network by being in touch with the department.
Centre for Continuing Education at UBC. You can call Eileen Hendry. You might put this number up later on, please. Eileen Hendry or Catherine Racine, R-A-C-I-N-E, 228-2181, and ask for the Women's Network.
And you'll be included then in the programs and in the newsletters of what's going on with women today through the networking system.
It's $35 a year.
That's
$35 bucks.
Oh, that's because, 17-cent postage, that takes a little.
Yeah, it does. Go ahead, please.
Hello, Jack.
Yes.
Yeah. I would like to ask Ms. Pigott, there are so many women today that feel that they can go out and challenge everybody, and they'll leave their children and everything else behind, and then when they fail, what happens to those broken families?
They go on welfare.
Oh, just a second, sir. I think one of the things you have to remember is that women don't really, maybe a few would leave their children, but women do take care of their children. They do try to find adequate care for them. But let me tell you that with inflation today, it is very difficult for women to live sometimes on what they have. And don't forget
Your point in, Jack?
Well, no, I don't.
You won't let me do it, will you?
Yeah, sure.
But the point is this, that so many husbands whose women want to go out and make a name for themselves are paying care and maintenance for these children, and the wives may be making more than the husband is making.
That's not bad. Why doesn't the man stay home and take care of the children? Why not?
It's not his role model.
It's not his role model.
It's beginning to happen, though. A lot of men are electing
but
to
when they got married, it was his role model.
Well, can't it change?
There is a genetic thing here, shouldn't it?
Oh, now, Jack, really? I thought British Columbia, all the men out here were very advanced.
I could look after my children as well as my wife looked after my children.
Of course you could.
Right? Because I'm the provider in my generation.
Yes.
And surely it's such a built-in human habit, it's difficult just to smash it down.
Well, we don't expect you to change, probably. You may be just a little over the hill. But I do think that a lot of the young people today
I hate to
No.
see the desexing of the male.
Oh, Jack.
I've got to.
That's why there are so many queers around nowadays. Poor guys have been
But-
emasculated.
Don't blame the women's movement for that, sir.
You know.
If you men can't stand, excuse me, I won't say anything more.
No.
This is getting
Let's
a little
get off this.
Can I say something?
No,
Yes,
you
sir.
said enough. It's women I want to talk to, not men. Go ahead, please.
Hello, Mrs. Pigott.
Hold on a second, please. Can I try somebody else, see if I can get a woman? See if I can find an intelligent woman. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Jack. Jane, I'm delighted to hear you, Jane, but I think what you're really talking about, although there may be, sort of a way of getting into this group per se, but really what we're talking about is that moral support of women in advancing themselves. But it also, I would think, really needs to apply to those women who are at home because they're terribly isolated. And, traditionally, I think women's role, and this is where I know I have run into a number of problems, is traditionally we're sort of suspicious of one another, suspicious of somebody advancing and feeling good about somebody else advancing rather than ourselves. And
What you're saying is that men are more generous. Men are more generous at sharing skills and communications than
Jack,
women up to
I
now.
have been living in the men's world for the last 25 years in business, and I have seen the longest knives out in all my life between men. Jealousy and backbiting is not just a female characteristic. But let me just answer that
Maybe
woman.
men covered it up better.
Well, maybe they. Well, I won't say.
Right.
I don't know that, but human nature is the same, whether it's a man or a woman, as far as jealousy and those kinds of things are concerned. But let me talk about the woman at the home, and that's very important. I've just gone on a task force for a university in Ontario, where I went on the sole purpose of seeing that research would be done for the woman who elects to stay at home, who has a good base education, who then says, how do I make certain that I don't lose those skills? That I can plug into a university or a community college and give me a 5 or 10-year program so that I am continuing my education. I am keeping up to date and relevant. So that if I elect to go back, what'd I say? Oh, all right.
You said relevant.
Oh, thank you very much.
This is a technique to rattle you. Relevant is the word.
All right, because you have a beautiful accent, you get away with making mistakes. But anyway, the thing is that Jack, I'm sorry. But we must do much more for the woman in the home to make certain that she is up to date and able to plug into the systems.
Not just coffee parties.
Yes, I think they're out of date.
Yeah, so do I. Go ahead, please.
Hello, Jean.
Yes.
What I have to say is somewhat relevant to what you've just been speaking about. And I refer to a number of former working women who are now retired, and they have a great deal to contribute. And they should be included in that particular women's group.
Yes, and there were people there last evening. One of the things I think we have to also put pressure on governments to do some of the things to help change the whole aspect of part-time work. So,
yes, but I'm not speaking even about part-time workers. Like, I've been retired myself for 5 years, and there's so many women like myself who have had a lot of experience in the business.
Well, you should be a role model.
Join the network. Go ahead, please.
Hello, Jean.
Yes.
I want to say I think your idea is tremendous, and I can certainly verify as to your business acumen. I don't know if you remember me or not. I lived in Ottawa most of my life, and I've been out in Vancouver for 8 years.
What's your name?
Jean Moreland, manager of the White and Elna sewing machine in Charles Ogilvie.
Yes, yes.
Next door to Morris and Lamont.
That's right.
And I knew your husband Art very well.
And Ogilvy's is still doing well.
Yes.
Yes.
I just wanted to say hello to you and welcome to Vancouver. And I think I must say that you're like old wine. You're improving with age.
Oh, thank you very much.
She also travels well.
Thank you very
Jean
much.
Moreland, I think. Where is McLeese Lake?
McLeese Lake is,
Go on.
well, it's about halfway between Williams Lake and Quesnel.
Good. Okay, go ahead, Jeannie Pigott.
Thanks, Jack. Ms. Pigott, I wanted to just make one point. I wanted to disagree with you. I have found that younger men are worse than older men when it comes to discrimination on the job. The younger men that I've had to supervise have been quite nasty at times about being supervised by a woman. They
you really have to be 3 times better than any man would ever be supervising, even to hold their attention when it comes to training them, anything to do with a female supervisor and a younger male. I've always found it...
Well, let me tell you one thing. Supervision is a very tricky business. Learning to supervise people, be male or female. And there's where you have to really work on your, what I call human skills.
Right.
Where you have to learn to create the atmosphere, where you at least try to eliminate jealousy and that kind of friction. It's the great thing of being able to look at goals and get everybody participating. Find the strengths of those people, those men or women or whatever they are, and see that they are folded into the team. It's it's very tricky, and boy...
You know, you make me count my blessings. I've worked mostly on my own all my life. And when you say things like developing skills, looking at goals and whatnot, I've never consciously done that in all my working life.
Well, you are, but you don't forget a lot of people work in teams.
We work in a team here.
Yes.
Rah, 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 the Webster team. We come in every morning and
I notice what great skills you have around here. Now, I presume that you are a role model here. I mean, you're you're really a great team builder. I notice how many cigarettes you steal, but anyway.
I'm a role model.
Thank you very much.
Well, by the way, what do you supervise? Is it a sawmill in McLeese Lake?
Well, not in McLeese, no. There's several in Williams Lake. What's in McLeese Lake is Gibraltar Mines.
Good. How's the weather this morning?
Snowing. Very cold and snowing.
And I didn't bring it from the east.
I'm going up to Kamloops for the weekend. I hope the sun comes out.
I understand Kamloops is pretty bad as well. Could I ask this Pigott something else?
Sure.
How valuable have you found assertiveness training to be?
Oh, I'm not certain that's a very good idea, except when you're dealing with Jack Webster. But I think the thing with assertiveness training, I think what you should do is to have training to develop your particular skills, your strengths. I think assertiveness sometimes is
obnoxious.
Well, I don't think I ever would take it myself.
You never did have to. How can you train people to be assertive?
No, I think that's not my idea of what.
That produces a phony toughness.
Yes.
I would say.
A shrillness, as you said.
Okay, nice to talk to Miss McLeese Lake. How much time we got, Fred? Waking up there, even though you are a man. No, I haven't got time to take it. Sorry for all you people, all you little green numbers that can't get through on the phone. The Centre for Continuing Education. The number is 228-2181, the Women's Network. And ask for Eileen or Catherine, right?
And I think they should have you as a role model sometime. I think you would be just great. And especially if you came and told them all the mistakes you'd make.
I'm going to make a very nasty double entendre. No, I won't make it. It's too nasty.
No. Oh, no. No, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Thank you very much. I've got my Santa Claus.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you very much for dropping in this morning. I trust you have a pleasant visit and that you expand the network and have a jolly good time. And
I'll do a little politics on the side.
A little politics on the side. And I'll be back after the break.
Tomorrow is Bill Davis, big day.
Of the Premier of Ontario. That should be a good interview. He's coming west to tell us something or other. 9 a.m. precisely.